an ultimate global podcast. Hello, and welcome to our special weekly podcast on trending international and social affairs. You're listening to Saurabh Kora and George Mavros from Sydney.
Well, welcome to an exciting series of episodes that we are covering on sports professionals. This is one of the very special episodes because we have never invited a sports professional till now in any of our episodes. So Baxter is one of the first people whom we are inviting in this special series, and I'm hoping that more sports professionals will become part of this series where we talk about how sports kind of has a direct impact on your day-to-day life. Sports is a hobby for a lot of people, but it becomes a profession for a lot of people when they can earn some money out of it. So Baxter is a professional cricketer at Cricket NSW and Sydney Thunders. If people have heard about the Big Bash League, which is quite popular in December, January in Australia. And Baxter is also studying a Bachelor's of Psychology. So I would pass it on to you, Baxter, because as a tradition, we generally don't introduce our guests. We don't waste a lot of time introducing our guests because we want you to narrate your own story in your own words to the listeners. So pass it on to you to give our listeners a brief about what you do and how did you think of becoming a cricketer?
Yeah, beautiful. Firstly, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you very much for the invite to come onto the podcast. I was very honoured to get the invitation. And then me. So I've grown up in Sydney. I'm 23 years old now, and I've been contracted cricketer for the last 6 years now. So I've been in New South Wales for 6 years and Sydney Thunder for 4 years. So I was lucky enough to grow up. I went to an all primary school, and then I was lucky enough to go to the King's School for my high school. That school was wonderful for me, not only for academics, but also co-curricular activities. I had my cricket coach there, put a lot of time and effort into me, and it's part of the reason why I'm at where I am today. And then from graduating from school, I then went into uni. I do uni part-time. I did sport and exercise management when I first left. And then after a couple of terms, I found out that it wasn't really for me and I wasn't really progressing anywhere with that. So then I left there and then I did a Bachelor of Psychology, which I'm still partaking in currently. I suppose off the cricket field, I'm an ambassador to a charity called the Cooper Rice Braiding Foundation, which raises awareness and conducts research into sarcoma cancer, which is one of the leading causes of cancer in children, which is quite a stark and confronting life when you see people go through it, especially when they're children and got so much longer to live. Besides that, I'm also starting up a public speaking where I go around to schools and corporates to tell my story and hopefully enlighten a few people on the progress that I've taken across for my story and hopefully one day help someone else.
Yep. So what was the first time that you thought of seriously thinking about cricket, or was it always the case with you that since the time you were 10 years old, you were holding a bat and ball in your hand, you were like, I want to become a cricketer when I reach 15?
Yeah, so I actually grew up playing cricket and rugby, just the natural ways anyone gets into sport. And then it wasn't until I was 15. When I was 15, I broke my arm playing cricket and then sort of made the decision to stop playing rugby because I missed half of the season. I felt like I was better at cricket, which has paid off so far, which is nice. But it was from that decision where I went to an underage carnival and I didn't get picked for the Australian side. And like any 15-year-old kid, you come home, you start kicking toys and go, oh, I think I probably should have been in that team. And then I went to my coach that was at school and he said, look, Baxter, you're going to face plenty of ups and downs in your career, but you can also go away and come back two different ways. You can either kick up stones and not come back and prove them right in the sense that you weren't good enough to be in it, or you can work harder and then come back and prove it. So from that day, I did about 25 hours a week training. And then lucky enough, the next season I got picked in the New South Wales side. And then from there, I've been ongoing, which is really good. But I suppose to answer your question, that was the day that I took it really seriously because like anything, you learn the most from the mistakes you make or the things that don't go your way. So that was the turning point.
Baxter, this podcast is revolving around the topic of transferable skills from jobs to other professions. I feel that there are a lot of skills which are transferable from how you play cricket on the field, and how you can operate later on as well in your life if you want to join any industry, or maybe you want to do something else in your life other than cricket. Do you think that there are certain skills which are transferable from sports or from cricket to other professions, which you might want to take on once you are retiring from cricket? Not now, of course, after a few years down the line.
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing that I always like to tell people is we're people first that can play cricket. I think in a lot of careers and a lot of different workplaces, sometimes you corner into the profession that you do, and people forget that you're actually a human being first, that have those skills first and foremost. But to tie in your question, I think the biggest thing I've learned from cricket and all progressing through that is work ethic is a massive part. No one gets where they are today without working and putting in the hard work. On top of that, patience and resilience. You're going to get knocked back in no matter what career you pick and choose. Some days you'll pick a career to start with, and then you find out 2 years' time that's not for you. So then you've got to regather yourself and go again. On top of that, I suppose the resilience topic in that is I missed a year of cricket because I was out with injury. And through that, I had to learn how to get myself going again, whether it was actually worth it, the career that I'd picked. And you go through a fair bit of time when you're in that much pain to go, hang on, do I really want this? You go through a few times of, am I actually as good as what everyone tells me I am? Are the sleepless nights worth the amount of work that I'm putting into this? So I suppose part of that is you progress so many days in your work career, you go to work, you do the same thing over and over again. And it's almost going back to trusting the process instead of the outcome. You can go years on end working at a goal, and then eventually it'll happen. And then that's when you really appreciate the journey that you've been on. So I think the biggest things there would be work ethic, resilience, patience, and then also, I suppose, goal setting is a massive one. I've set goals every year. I set short-term goals, which are the next 6 months, mid-term, which is probably 6 to 18 months, and then long-term, which is 5 years onwards. So every year we sit down, we go through them, and I suppose it's a great way to just keep us on track and allow us to achieve something and work towards something.
Yep. That's exciting. I want to bring in George into this discussion as well now. Just to understand from his perspective, we've got a lot of friends, George, in our community who play sports and how they learn different lessons from sports and bring it to life. What do you think, according to you and your community's experience, that sports has got an impact on your day-to-day life as well, not only as a profession but as a hobby as well, to kind of relax, to kind of chill out, to kind of make sure that your brain is working in the right direction, even if you're doing something else?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I agree with all the points that Baxter raised, but I think he left one out, and I'm sure he's going to be going, you're right, as soon as I say it. I think one of the most beneficial things from a team sport is teamwork, as opposed to quite often a tennis player, a golfer, somebody that throws a javelin. Yes, they have a team supporting them, but you do not learn the full essence of teamwork unless you're playing a team sport, in my opinion. And part of that teamwork that you learn, and that teamwork ethos that you learn, is that not everybody can have a great day every day. And if they do, it's never on the same damn day. So, we've seen more than enough cricket matches lost by the bowlers, won by the batsmen, won by the batsmen, and the bowlers, won by the bowlers, lost by the batsmen. The wicket keeper's missed. The outfield's done this. You don't see the team belt up whoever made a mistake. If anything, in a team sport, you see the rest of the team rally around, say, it's okay, we've got this, let's go, blah, blah. Quite often in business, people are supposedly in a team, but if my team loses in business, quite often they'll then want to go and attack who they perceive as the cause. So when you find people in business that play team sports, historically, I've found you get a much richer workplace environment. because they really do understand. Today I might be up and tomorrow I might be down, but I've got my team around me. The other thing is that I think sport in general is a wonderful, wonderful tool to teach us. Today you're on top and you're the number one, and tomorrow somebody says, "Who are you?" So you get that high and low, and you're only as good as your last game, and all those sorts of things. And I think that's something that people have to come to understand in business. I'm in a networking group, and at the moment, a whole lot of people are running around because they're in the top 20 in the region, or they're in the top so many in Australia, and that is an honour, and that is an accolade, and that's worthy. And I've been there too, but I'm also not in it at the moment for various reasons, and I'll be back in it again. But whether I'm in there or out of there, I'm still doing what I do. I'm still me. And so I think sport quite often will teach us that you can play your best game and lose, and you can play your worst game and win. It's just the luck of the draw sometimes. Now, if you stay consistent and you do all the things that you're supposed to do, then you get far more success. And I liken sport to business. Again, I mentioned that I'm in a networking group, which happens to be BNI, and they're very rigid on you have to turn up, you have to do this, you have to do that, and you have to do all. It's about 7 core things that you really need to do if you want to succeed in BNI. And we get a lot of people that come in, and after 6 or 12 months, they go, "Oh, this is too hard." Baxter, how many guys did you grow up with that said, "Oh, I'm not going and doing training every night, or I'm not doing this, or I'm too busy, or I can't give up playing with my mates to come down here"? It's that same thing, isn't it? If you're not prepared to commit to all the things that you should do, and if you think that they're all too hard, you'll never get the accolade of the success. So I think there's a lot that can be taken from sport into business. And certainly I've coached team sports for over 40 something years now. And I see kids grow because of it.
Do you have any tough questions for Baxter?
So you've gone in and you went to get selected, and you got a pat on the head and a pat on the back and said, "Good on you, son, off you go." You didn't make it. Now that's a bit of a kick in the guts and all of that. What did you do to have the confidence when you went the second time and not replay, "Oh, I could be going in here and I'll get rejected again," and all that? Because that's a lot of self-defeat that people quite often, if they miss it the first time, they actually sabotage themselves the second time. What do you think you did, apart from the work that you did to get that second chance? How do you think you approached it that gave you another edge?
I suppose everyone goes through life, and I don't like using the word, but we fail more times than we'll ever succeed. And someone told me a long time ago that if you replace the word failure for a learning, then it gets rid of all that angst around going out, and that pressure automatically falls off you. Because when you mention the word failure, everyone seizes up and goes, "Oh, if I fail, I'm a failure. I'll never get picked in these sides. I'll never achieve what I've made out to achieve." But if you go, "Hang on, yes, it didn't work out the way I wanted to, but look at how much I learned from it," you come out of it feeling like you actually gained something out of it. And then they haven't attacked your self-worth. They haven't done anything like that, but it's actually allowed you to step and progress in a way that you don't see at the time. Don't worry, I know that better than anyone. If I get phoned tomorrow and the selector says you've been dropped, I still take it to heart. It's your natural way of handling things, but it's the way you go away, and within the next hour, the next 24 hours, or the next week, you go, "Well, maybe he is right. Maybe I do need to work on these things." And yeah, I actually am going to take that away and progress in that area. And then if I go back and I'm still not good enough, then I ask for that feedback and I go, "Okay, yep, fair enough," or, "No, I don't really agree with that, but we'll work with it," and we keep going. I suppose we all do what we want to do because we love it, or we grew up loving and trying to achieve a dream. So you're always going to try and go back to it because you want to do it so much. I'm lucky. I play a hobby and I get paid for it.
Yes.
Which is the best way to put it. As a 6-year-old kid, I dreamed of playing with the people that I saw on TV, and I'm lucky enough now that half the Australian players come from New South Wales. So I've had dinner with them. I've gone to training with them. I've faced them in the nets, which is scary as anything. But I'm able to do all those things because I have failed and I have bounced back, and I do keep coming back. As much as it hurts, it always hurts to be rejected, whether that's in business, whether it's sport. People are going to tell you you're not good enough most days of the week, but you got to have that self-belief in you to be able to come back and bounce back and keep going, if that answers your question.
Yep. Just to continue to that, Baxter, I think you have already touched upon that. But as George pointed out, that there are a lot of times in life when you're going through the best of the best periods of your life. You're scoring the maximum runs. You're getting a century every match, or I think you are a wicket keeper, so you're getting the stumping done every second ball. Everything is going your way. But then there are days when nothing goes your way. You missed out the stumping. You got out for a duck. Or you couldn't, your team was not on the right side of on the day. How do you tackle your mindset on those days as an individual, and then how does that translate as a team? Do you think that in those kind of times, the role of a coach that we have, a cricket coach, a head coach, is also equally important as the team itself?
Yeah, definitely. Coaching and support staff are vital in any aspect. And for us who spend so much time on the road and so much time away, they are our sounding boards most of the time. But usually it's the players that rally around you the most. And I nick off more the times than I like to admit. I've got more ducks than I have centuries. It's just the way that sport goes and most things go. But it's times where it's a lot of training, and we're lucky that our teammates see how much effort we put in every day. So whether we fail, whether we succeed, they know how much time and effort we've put into it. So they treat us as who we are. It doesn't matter if we get 100, it doesn't matter if we get a duck, still invite us to dinner, they'll still talk to us, because we've realized over the years that we are human beings and we make mistakes like anyone. Say in business, you miss a deal. We know you were trying. We know you tried your hardest to get the deal, and who knows? The other company could have not been able to afford the deal, or something might have happened to make them recluse off that. So there's so many things that are out of your control. And if they don't succeed, they don't succeed. But I feel like, to answer your question, those bonds that you build with the teammates really allow you to go out and learn the hardest way in failure. So, and you also, if you do fail, you look back on what you have achieved over the time and realize that, yeah, it was just a bad day. We all have them. And maybe tomorrow, like you said, I might go out and score 100.
Do you think that we need more people from the sporting background to kind of join the industry in the later part of the career? This was one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, because I thought that since you are in sports, what is your future goal as an individual? And do you really think that a lot of people in sports can add value to other sectors later on in their career when they have retired from cricket and they have learned something from cricket, but then they can apply it in the other parts of their life to maybe earn some money, or not only earn some money, but give value, create value for companies later on?
Yeah, absolutely. Realistically, I'm 23. I've probably got 12 years left at my professional career. Usually we retire around 35 from being an athlete, and then you have to go out into the real world, as people call it, and get another job. I suppose the traits and the techniques that you learn in my sport as cricket, you can put them in any job and have success through it. I've been team sport. Maybe you've led a team, so there's your leadership. You know how to talk to people. You know how to interact with people and communicate, which is a massive part of any job or any way of life. Goal setting, all the traits that I've said before. We have to keep working. It's the way the climate is that you can't just retire at 35 and put your feet up and hopefully sip cocktails on the beach for the rest of your life. But I suppose all that talent, all that time and hard work and all those learnings would go to waste if we didn't go into the business world or a different industry. We've got so much to share and so much to pass on to people, whether that is in sport, whether it's in business, whether it's just your everyday person that you meet on a park bench somewhere. So I feel like it's vital that we go into the workforce. And so many people have gone into it. Our ex New South Wales captain went into finance. Drew Mitchell with the Wallabies is in real estate. So we all definitely do go into different avenues and different sectors of work. And I feel like those traits and those learnings that we pick up over the time is an easy way to go into business and hopefully allow us to succeed.
So you were talking about your short-term and long-term goals, Baxter, a while ago. So why not talk about that? What is your short-term goal at the moment, and what's your long-term goal? Are you trying to replace Brad Hedden in the near future for Australia?
So short-term goal is to hopefully get through a season injury-free, which is always a nice thing. I had a couple of injuries last year. I dislocated my thumb and dislocated my shoulder, so it wasn't ideal, but taught me a fair bit about resilience and came back and try and ensure that I'm mentally and physically prepared for anything. So short term would be get through a season and dominate a season. With that would be averaging 30 plus batting wise and take most of the chances I can take. And then long term, hopefully the next 5 years, I'm playing for Australia. It's a lofty goal, but you've got to set lofty goals to hopefully achieve them, because we're all working towards saying, and for the days you don't want to get out of bed and go to work, it makes it a lot easier to get up and go to try to achieve something. And then once my career does finish, I want to go down the road of clinical psychology or in that field. So I'm currently doing a bachelor in psychology, and then after that's finished, I'll go into a master's, and you never know. In 12 years' time, I might be a doctor. Hopefully, maybe, we'll see. Or at least have the doctor title.
Yep. Did you have anything to say on that, George?
Yeah. So you're currently doing some work with charity, and you've got your cricket and all of that. What have you found that you've been able to transfer from your cricket into your charity work?
Yeah, absolutely. It's time management's a massive one. We only have so many hours in the day to fit everything in. So I've gotten a lot better at scheduling things, putting everything in my calendar and make sure that I'm not double booking myself or simple things like that. But I'd say it's probably the other way around. I've learned more in the charity space to bring back to cricket than I have the other way. I suppose the best thing about being involved in charities and the charity that I am is it's a perspective shifter. Like I said before, I live out a dream. I live out of a hobby. But sometimes when you do get in ruts and you do face those hard times, you think that everything's really difficult and life is hard. But then I'm very fortunate that in my work at the charity, I see people that are literally struggling to stay alive, and they don't know how long they've got, or they don't have access to the life that they once wanted to. So when you go, and I do a fair few hospital visits and see people struggling like that, I'm able to go back to cricket. And if I do nick off for nothing, then it's okay. I'm very fortunate that I'm not a doctor. I don't have to save lives. And my bad day is I nick off. Their bad day is a really bad place. So
yeah.
I suppose it's gone the other way. So charity's really helped me to open my eyes to the world. And actually, if I do fail, my failure is not that bad. I still get picked. I still get paid to play cricket. I still turn up the next day. And a coach said to me one year that no matter how bad the result is, the sun will still come up the next day.
And so I love that. That is one of my most common sayings. I will say to somebody, you know what? I'm 67 years of age, and up until this morning, the sun came up the next day. There's no reason to think it's not going to happen tomorrow. Get on with it.
Yeah, it hasn't failed me yet.
Yep. So whoever told you that, I respect them and think they're a very, very astute person.
So, while we are talking to someone, Baxter, then as per your long-term goal, who can potentially be playing for Australia in the 2024 T20 World Cup, is that what we should consider?
Uh, I suppose you're always hopeful that you're going to do what you can the short term. I'll never say no to a question because it's the way that our world works. A few injuries, you could be thrown into the deep end, and hopefully you succeed and you do well and you take your opportunity. So you always have to be ready, no matter what the timing is or what the team is. So hopefully, you never know. But at the minute, I'm just focusing on what I'm doing every day to try and make myself prepared for that moment if I ever do get the opportunity, whether that's in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years.
Yep.
Did
And I think
you,
if you know about, yep, go on, George.
Did you have a particular keeper that you aspired to be like, or wanted to shape yourself? I want to be like him, or I want to be like him. Or
Yeah, so I grew up, and the reason I'm a keeper originally was because I watched Adam Gilchrist play cricket.
Yeah.
He sort of ruined it for all of us because now we have to be able to bat as well. So he's added to my workload.
And that's the first name. That's the first name which came to my mind as well.
Yeah, so he was the reason I got into cricket and the reason I'm a keeper. I was lucky to meet him a couple of times as he's a commentator now on most of the games. So it's been really nice. And then once he retired, Brad Haddon was a massive role model of mine. And it wasn't until later on that I admired how much he did for the country and how much he played. But it was more his off-field struggles that really I admired. It's public now, so but his daughter suffered from leukemia, I think it was. So he took a year out and put his family first, which is a massive thing for any professional athlete or any business, to have the confidence to go, look, my family's number one. I'm going to step away from whatever it is. And hopefully my job will be back there in a year. And if it's not, then I did what I had to do. So that was the reason why I admired him so much in his career. And he went out with such belief. He believed in himself that he could do anything he possibly could. I've been lucky enough to have him. I've caught up for coffee with him. He's overlooked me for the last couple of years, which has been really nice. So I've been able to meet these role models and these heroes of mine as I grew up, and they've been exactly like they were on TV, which has been really nice. But yeah, Adam Gilchrist to start, and then Brad Haddon.
Fair enough. Back to you, Cyril.
Yep. And I think even in India this year, we saw one of the Indian wicket keepers getting injured, badly injured. Rishabh Pant, who had a car accident earlier this on. He's a Test cricketer and wicket keeper for India in Test matches. And you know how a car accident can actually spoil your 2 years of your cricketing life. We came to know through that incident. But Baxter, might want to ask you, one of my last questions for today is, do you think that sports is also a good way to practice mindfulness and be a hobby for people who are not taking it as a profession, but it's a good way for them to divert their mind towards something else?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone tries to get their exercise somehow, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's going for a run, whatever it is. I'm very lucky that I play a team sport, as we've mentioned already. So I get to go play with my best mates every day. The two of my best mates that I still have today from school, I met when I was 10, and they're both in the same cricket team. So it's those connections and those bonds that you make, partially because we both failed together multiple days in a row, and we've succeeded together. So we've seen the highs and we've seen the lows, and it's a great way to decompress. And I've played with many adults and many 30-year-olds who have had full-time work 9 to 5 on Monday through Friday and love coming to play cricket on a Saturday. And it's great to see how much joy and happiness they get out of doing that, even if they do fail. But it's the fact that they can decompress, they forget about life for a bit, and it acts as an escape. They don't have to worry about the big deal they've got coming up on Monday or the big presentation they've got. So it does alleviate them of all those stresses for a bit, which is really nice. And it brings mindfulness is a good way to put it. It puts everything at ease for a bit and gives them something else to focus on.
Yep. Any final questions from you, George?
Not necessarily a final question, of course, Sarab, but
Of course.
but as a supporting statement. When I coached I coached soccer players for many, many years, and numbers of the parents would be pushing the kids that not sure he can come on Saturday because he's got to study for this, or he's got to learn to play the violin, or they've got to do this, or they've got to do this. I used to say to the parents, if all it's about is passing the exam, if all it's about is getting to the next level of playing the violin, you're actually going to have a child at the end of this that's good at that, but they're not good at anything else. They're not good at socializing. They're not good at interacting. They're not good at getting beaten. They're not good at enjoying success with others. There's so many things that come from that time out. And I've had a terrible year this year because of business. I haven't been able to play soccer much this year, but I still play in an over 50s comp, walking soccer. And our team is called the Tilapia Tragics because it's an over 50s comp, but our youngest player is 62 or 63 years of age. And our oldest player now, Gordon, would now be 70. Just the interaction between meeting up with those people, it makes a huge difference because you can't help but forget what's happening in business when you're on the field. And so anybody watching this that thinks, oh, I'm too busy to play sport, if you're too busy, you should be playing sport. It's a wonderful release, and it causes you to think about others and other things for just that amount of time, but that makes a huge difference.
Of course, and I've started going to the gym 2 months ago, George. I find a slight difference in the way I approach things after starting to go to the gym, especially when you're doing it with your personal trainer, who is going to throw you out of your comfort zone whenever you go and have a session with him. So he's going to tell you that, if you're doing 10 reps, go for 15. If you're doing 8 kgs, go for 14. That's what we do in sales all the time. We're always targeting to get more sales in, or whatever profession you are in, you're always targeting to level up yourself, but you're doing it progressively, one step at a time. And that's how you kind of learn new things every day, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a wonderful business speaker, a fellow by the name of Stan Phelps. And he's got a series of books which both of you would benefit from reading. And it's the Goldfish series by Stan Phelps. And one of the things that Stan talks about is whenever you're in a goldfish tank, one of the things that limits the size of goldfish growing is actually the tank that they're in. So we all think that goldfish are sort of fairly small, but they've got an ability to grow quite large. But because there's so many of them in a small tank, they just tend to environmentally not go further than they could. So he talks about always have a bigger tank to move into. So for you, Jordan, that's local cricket, New South Wales, Australia, where do I go after here sort of thing. And Sarab, for you in your career, it's obviously a career path. But a wonderful, wonderful series of books. And anybody watching this podcast, I had the pleasure of listening to Stan again. I was at a networking meeting last week. And it reminded me of some real pearlers that he has in them.
It's not Jordan, it's Baxter.
Sorry, my apologies. You got me into
that. So that's exactly what happens, listeners, when we record back-to-back episodes on different days with different speakers.
And the old guy's got Alzheimer's. There we go.
I was going to let it slide, but it was your co-host that just couldn't let you live with it.
Oh, no, Baxter, we both have bus licenses.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But normally we will put a blanket over each other before we drive the bus over.
It's very nice of you.
Any final comments from you, Baxter, before this entry into a very dark age of jokes?
Not really. No. Thank you for having me. It's probably the first one. But I suppose the biggest thing that I've learned the last 5 years is we're all ordinary people doing extraordinary things. So I suppose the biggest thing I've learned is if we treat people as people and we care as much as we do, it doesn't matter the result that we do, whether it's on a sporting field, whether it's in an office, whether it's with family. At the end of the day, those that mind don't matter and those that matter don't mind. So keep enjoying what you're doing. And like we've already discussed, the sun will come up the next day no matter what happens.
It will indeed.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Baxter. Really appreciate you spending time with us. And I hope to see you again, for different things. I also run my meetups on the weekend, so feel free to join us for any coastal walk if you wish to do that. And recently I've started off with something called as coffee catch-ups. Love to meet you over a cup of coffee. And I'm sure George and I would love to meet you in person for any kind of other stuff that you want to share with us personally. And if you want to come back again on the podcast. Thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure. My phone's always on as well if you ever need anything. So thank you, and hopefully it's helped someone.
Cheers, man.
This is an Ultimate Global Podcast. Hello, and welcome to our special weekly podcast on trending international and social affairs. You're listening to Saurabh Kora and George Mavros from Sydney.